For everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Marcel. I have a PhD in business process management, and I've been working in AI and with AI for over 10 years now. I've worked in half of the German big industry and in academia across the world. I spent some time in the United States. I do a lot of other things that, apart from just giving webinars. Namely, I am the CEO of a company called Engine. And we have an enterprise-grade business process engine, so where you can build basically many different applications for your enterprise with AI at scale and go through it. So that's my day-to-day business. What you will hear from me today will not be only academic and theoretic knowledge, but the knowledge that I have from more than 24 customer projects with AI in different ways, forms, or extents in the last couple of months and over since 2022, so almost 2 years, specifically with generative AI, and since 2014 with different types of AI. Transformers are only a thing since 2018, but that doesn't mean there was no AI before. Fun fact, the Nobel Prize in Physics has yesterday been awarded to two key figures who basically paved the way for AI. Let's say the first guy who came up with the Boltzmann machine and a person working on recurring neural networks, or something that is close to what we call recurring neural networks today. So AI has quite a lot of history, but we are looking today a little bit more into the recent history, specifically with everything that we call generative AI. And with generative AI, how we can make our processes and our businesses better, more efficient, faster, whatever it is that you would like to organize. We talk in the third part a little bit how you carry out these projects in terms of organization. We talk about different applications, and in the end, I will just give you a brief intro about what we are doing here at Engine together with the Center for Deep Tech Innovation and ways to how to get in touch. I have a second monitor here on my left, so if you see me looking away, it's not because I'm streaming a Netflix series on my second monitor. It's because I'm trying to keep my hand on the chat, or an eye on the chat, better to say. So if you have any type of question, feel free just to put it in the chat. I will make, after certain points, little breaks and get to your questions as soon as I see them and as soon as they additionally, this session today is recorded. So if you have to go to another important meeting halfway through it, or you are in a very late time zone and you're falling asleep in the middle, don't worry. We are going to give you a recording to a YouTube video. So this will be the recording from today via an email within the next couple of days. And we are going to also send out the slides for the people that want. So if you want to have the slides specifically, just answer to the email that we are going to send out, and we'll give you the slides too for your reference. So that was enough of introduction. I hope to have how real I said it, worthwhile session today. And I will start a little bit about how we got here. We all are probably here because our interest in the topic of generative AI has been sparked with ChatGPT, which is basically a chatbot interface between what we call a large language model. Back in 2022, when it launched originally, this large language model was called GPT 3.5. Now we are at a GPT 4.0 and 4.0 mini and 4.01 and 4.01 mini type of, let's say, cycle in terms of naming. So there has been quite some development on the model area aside since then. Keep in mind that ChatGPT is basically just a chat interface in front of that large language model, and you can do other things than chatting with it. But the chat interface is one of the reasons why it was or it got so popular, and how generative AI models and large language models specifically got so much exposure to, let's say, people that are usually not very big experts in AI, because frankly speaking, the user interface is that simple, and anybody who has ever used a messenger app like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever, iMessage, can basically use this interface. Yeah? So that got in our business quite a lot of people to dream about potential use cases, and specifically in enterprise environments, and how we can make our life better. And I tell you now, almost 2 years into that story, there have been companies that have done a lot of different things. I talked yesterday to a company who purchased a ChatGPT account for all of their 18,000 employees. So, you know, if they got a very good deal on that, that's something like, I don't know, $10 a month. If you buy in bulk, probably with big with big discounts. So we're talking here about an investment of 180,000 a month. So yeah, 2 million and a bit per year, which some companies are investing in basically having access to an enterprise version of ChatGPT. And the more and more I talk with people like that, the more and more I hear that they are not really sure if there's a return investment, because it's a nice chat interface. But in the end, 90% of the people in that organization don't use it because they don't know really how to get it, or they are not satisfied with the output. And that's where, you know, that little gap from strategic consulting companies or analyst companies like Goldman Sachs, where they tell you basically that there is so many different industries that will see a lot of impact with generative AI, and the actual practical implementation of generative AI in the field is quite something different. So this here is a graphic that was published, I think, the beginning of last year. And we see here on the x-axis buckets of different types of industries. And we see with the color coded how big of a portion of the tasks in that particular industry will see no automation at all. That's the dark blue colors over here. So you see here mostly, let's say, physical task, building and grounds cleaning and maintenance, installation, repair, construction, and extraction. So a big portion of the task in the house industry will not see any type of AI it being there, just because, you know, generative AI can't lift a concrete wall or create a drywall for you. On the other side, we see a lot of industries where we see AI to be used as a complement for half of the tasks, or half of the parts of the tasks that you have. Anything that is related to computer science, educational, business, sales, architecture, engineering, management, all of that sees a lot of potential for using AI as a complement for existing people that do existing tasks. And then we see a bunch of, or let's say a small amount of industries where we see a likely replacement of a portion of tasks by AI. And that is namely legal and office and administrative support, where up to 30% of all of the tasks will likely be completely just replaced with AI. And when we are doing these type of AI projects and we are trying to harness this power, we have in an enterprise 3 major challenges: compliance and privacy, scaling and reproducibility, and data and systems integration. Compliance and privacy is, let's say, the biggest amount of the largest impact that you can reach is with these type of models and with these type of applications, is when you use actually your private data, your company data, your customer data, your whatever it is, your company knowledge in these type of generative AI applications. So give it access to it to answer questions and build something with your processes. Therefore, it's important that for many of the companies. This is private data and that shouldn't leak anywhere or get transmitted to a third party. If you are using right now the OpenAI products like ChatGPT, all of what you're doing is physically being transferred to a server that is under the control of an American company headquartered in the Silicon Valley. You have service level agreements, terms of services, where they say what they are going to do with your data, and without reciting to you the terms and conditions of OpenAI's ChatGPT to you. If you are not paying for OpenAI ChatGPT software, they take just whatever data that it is that you have, and use it to train their models and make that better, which might be a little bit problematic depending on your let's say compliance parts that you have to take up. Yet there are also other ways to get around that, to have basically private instances like with OpenAI through Microsoft Azure, or by using large language models that are open source available like Llama 3, where you can get to more of an enterprise type of thing. But that's something that you have to consider when you are building generative AI applications in your company. The other thing is scaling and reproducibility. That's actually the biggest problem that these people who bought 18,000 licenses for ChatGPT and now realize that it has absolutely zero impact on their business realize is depending on who is prompting a chat interface, you will always get different answers. You will always get different qualities of the answers. You will get a different tone, a different style. Give the same task to 100 people and you will get 100 different outputs. And that's exactly what you don't want if you want to be a company with scaling, with a scalable business, with scaling processes and going on. Emilia, is the screen share still working?
Yes, it's working.
Wonderful. Because that overlay just went away from me. Okay. And the last thing is data and systems integration. Of course, I said we want to have our company knowledge in an LLM. That's not only a privacy challenge, but it's also system integrations and the governance challenge that you have. Authentication, authorization, role, group management, who can get access to what type of information is something that is really needs to be considered before you go into projects. And the story that I'm telling you today, and that's probably why you clicked on book today in Eventbrite, is it's all about processes. Yeah, of course, you can get like small little knickknacks and productivity tools for summarizing text and for speaking in the voice of XYZ. But in the end, for a measurable impact on your business, you need to talk about processes, you need to focus about processes, and you need to have a mindset of making processes better with AI. And not just taking an AI like ChatGPT, give it to people, and then just hope that they will figure it out along the way. Yeah, that's not helping. I have seen that in so many businesses, they did all the same mistake. So when you're here today, don't do that mistake. Focus on processes first. I give you here an example. This is a process that the CFO of a mid-sized company, effective a mid-sized company, it's a little bit privatized, anonymized from a real customer that I have at the moment. A fictive company in Germany, headquartered. A CFO of that company has about 400 invoices every month that they need to first look into and then map that invoice to a certain cost center, find the responsible persons in that cost center, and ask whether or not to pay this invoice. Yeah, because when you are a big enough company, you would just get invoices from whoever for whatever it is, just hoping to get it paid. And the process looks like this: the CFO has to write an email to the department head, that leads the project related to that specific invoice, ask for justification. The department head has to write justification and in the end say, yeah, we are going to pay or we shouldn't be paying due to whatever reasons, then checking the invoice, and then in the end making a decision. This is a process where I would like to show you how to work with processes and how to build proof of concepts and later bring them into production by focused on a specific process. Yeah. If you say, yeah, I don't know my processes, I have no idea how to prioritize, how to implement them. Well, I'm giving you here the tools at hand that you can implement. And the process on a strategic level is first selecting the business processes that have at the moment are in the process of causing the pain in your business. Is making a selection from some of them that you are going to prototype, make a proof of concept, afterwards productize these proofs of concepts, and in the end launch them and operate them. And we are going to go into that step-by-step process. So let's talk about that finance department that I was just talking about. In each of your processes, you have tasks that you need to do. In the case of this process, we need to map an invoice to a certain category and to a cost center. Then we need to write an email to the department head, and the CFO needs to write an answer. We need to upfront put a number to quantify how big that pain is for our business, because it doesn't make sense to invest 30,000 euros into a process that costs you per year 5,000 euros. Yeah, just as simple as it is. If you are not familiar with how to evaluate that, well, make it quite simple. What type of person is doing the task? What is the cost of that person doing the task, and how long does that task take? And how many cases of the same repetition of the same task do you have? So that's the quantifying of the pain points that you have. You can qualify the pain point in the first step, saying, okay, mapping to a category is always the same thing, and it always needs to be done manually in a case. So we have a lot of repetitions, and we have a caseworker that costs us internal costs of 50 bucks an hour, but we have 1,000 cases. So we have here 4,100 euros a month that this process costs us. Of course, there's overhead, there's other things, that there's infrastructure costs, but keep it simple that you can put a number to it. Writing the email is taking per case not 5 minutes like the mapping to the category, but 15 minutes. But you have less cases because you could basically rule out 90% of the cases where everything is trivial. So that gives us a pain point of 1,200 euros a month. And writing the answers to the CFO takes you longer time for 100 cases, so we have a higher pain point. And based on that, you have to you create a triage and select one or several parts of the process or processes end to end that you would like to prototype. And by prototyping, I mean it's basically modeling the process and translating this process into a set of different prompts. The best practice over here is not to have just one prompt where you dump all of your data and ask a model to do your job. That usually doesn't give you consistent and high quality results. The prototype process is about breaking down your tasks into small and manageable chunks and putting them in a sequence next to each other. You can do that with ChatGPT. Most of the cases it doesn't really make sense. But there's also other ways how you can do that, and I will show that to you in a second. So when we open up, let me open up a tool, the tool that we are developing. It's called End Engine, but of course we can also build have another tool doing the same thing that we have here. But we are going now to build live a prototype of an application that does invoice controlling for us from that running process that I've shown you the last time. So I create an process that is called CFO assistant process. And I'm associating that with an organization and then make it visible. What we are doing now here in End Engine, you can build what we call a process template. And a process template is exactly the mental mindset that you need to have to build something that is in the end reproducible in quality and scalable across different people in your company. And we are creating here a process template, and this process template is called invoice check, and that's the version 1 of that invoice check. You see on that slide, I'm here talking a little about when you are building these type of process templates, what do you need to think about? You need to think about the individual steps of the tasks that you are trying to do and the inputs and outputs that you are trying to achieve. So do you have input? Do you have case-specific context? Do you have static context that you need to feed in? Where does that come from? How do you feed it in? Topics like retrieval augmented generation also come up over here, but we have a separate webinar for that. So if you are deep into knowledge bots, into semantic search, into retrieval augmented generation, we have other material. This would today be a little bit too much. So we do a prototype, and in our case, we have a process where in the first step, we need to map an invoice to a cost center in a department and find out who is responsible for that. So what we are feeding in each of these 100 invoices that we need to take a look at in one of the 100 cases is we need to feed always an invoice. An invoice for us is a PDF document. That's what we call a variable, an input variable that always changes from execution to execution, but that you always have in whatever instance of that process you have. So, and then we not only need an invoice, but we also need something to map this invoice against. And this is my department mappings. So this is a document that basically tells you a little bit about what projects you currently have in the different departments and who's responsible for them. I have here an example. This is an example invoice. The invoice looks like this. You have here, this is an AWS invoice, and you have about 700 euros for Amazon EC2, S3, RDS, Lambda functions, Route 53, built to mobility makers for the project called microserver. And you have a document where you have a current overview of the current projects, the current departments, and who's responsible for that. And our job will be now that we know the inputs, or we are going to change the inputs later over time. We need to build a process that can handle these inputs. So, and I'm doing here a very simple process and say, I am the CFO of a German company, and I need to do invoice controlling. That's what we call role prompting and setting a general goal of the things. We have, by the way, we have also a webinar on prompt engineering. And if you want to have the recording for that, that's quite extensive. Feel free to write an email. We can also send that to you. So, and then I say I have the following invoice, and then I feed in this variable called invoice. And I say I have the following projects, projects with departments and responsible persons. And there I'm feeding in the variable of my department mapping. And what I do now is I store this, I save this template, and I say, I'm not done yet. I say, tell me the person who is responsible for the invoice and why in 3 sentences. So, and that's my task that I give now to the LLM. What an engine we do is we take these templates and we make these templates usable by external users. We have different types that we can do in here, but the point is that the person building this process does not have to be the person using the process template in the end, because we will see later there's a lot of thought that needs to go into building these processes. But in the end, we have other people that might want to use that. So what I'm doing now is I'm uploading just these two things. I have here my example invoice that I'm going to upload. Here I have to find it in my list. Give me a second. There's the webinar, and there is my invoice. There we go. Oh, no, sorry, that was the wrong one. I have to upload the department list first and the invoice second. And what is happening now when I press generate is that one step tiny process is being executed. I will show you in a second, because this process will get much more complex in a minute, but I will just show you what happens. So we have the person responsible for the invoice is Max Meyer, as the invoice pertains to services to the microservice project. And according to your records, Max Meyer is the project leader of microserver in the IT security department. This is his email address. Ask him for any clarification. So let's look Max Meyer, IT security, microserver project seems to be there. Good. Then we are going to make this process a little bit more complex, because it's only the first step that we are about identifying. And the second step actually is writing the email to that specific person. And this is the next step that we are going to do. And we are going to feed the following in. So the next step is I am a CFO. I have already identified an responsible person for the following invoice. Then I put the invoice here. This person is responsible. And then I put my output from my first step as an input to my second step. And that's the chain of thought that actually makes, in the end, the real applications that are reproducible and that help. And then it says, okay, I have the person responsible. So now write a nice email to my colleague asking about each individual item on the list, and asking for justification and an associated budget. And that's basically the end of the second step that we're going to do. We saved that, and we could go now back to the launch, but what I actually want to show you is that we don't necessarily need to go back to the launch, but we use this debug interface here to see the intermediate steps. So we are pressing here generate in this debugging interface, and we'll see the first step and the second step in a second. So first step, again, we identified here that Max Meyer is the person that is identified. And the second step is writing the email. And you see here, dear Max, I hope this email finds you well. This is my items, EC2 instances, S3, Lambda, Route 63. Please justify why the cost incurred, the expenses align with the budget, and if there's any foreseeable changes. And then we have our email created. And now think about, you actually have to do that 100 times, then you save some time. So I say, Alexei Rossi is asking, German standard DIN 5008 says thousands separators would be a space. Are we talking here a €4 process improvement, or 4,000 euros in this case? Aside that, what's the meaningful figure in your opinion below which you shouldn't select cases for AI automation? Alex, that is a very good question. In the end, AI is going to cost you something, yeah? software like this, like I do, is costing you something, but also ChatGPT is costing you something. It's in the end always in the return on investment. I say if you have 1,000 instances of a €4 process every week, that means basically your pain point is €16,000 a month. That's worthwhile. But also if you have a process, if you have let's say 10 times a process that costs you 1,000 per execution, that's also worthwhile. So it's basically the combination of the amount of time that it takes you times the price of the person that needs to do this task, and then times the amount of repetitions that you have. A €4,000 case, if you have a use case with €4,000 a month that you would like to save, get in contact with me, because this is many of the customers that I have currently. We have their typical things that amount to 50,000 euros a year. So cases that cost 4,000 or 5,000 euros a month is a good place, because usually these things where you actually have repetitions. You say here DIN 5008. I work with a company at the moment that does certifications for ISO 9001 and different DIN norms. So auditing processes usually where we are doing exactly that. So if you have an auditor or for DIN 5008 and you are a company that's a little bit more than just a one-man company and you have a significant amount of repetitions, I would say that's worthwhile. But specifically for that, if you would like to go deeper into that, I'm more than happy to, after this meeting, schedule a meeting with you and go a little bit deeper into your use case. But €4,000 a month in terms of pain point is a good starting point. Yeah. If you have something that is smaller than 1,000, take ChatGPT and try to work with it. Then it's not really worth putting a lot of effort into building something that you in the end might not use that often. Yeah. But if you have a selection of different processes where you have synergies between each other and they cost like that, then it makes sense. Yeah. If you have an overall project volume of a bunch of different processes, €4,000 and plus, this is, in my opinion, you guess there basically pretty much a good number, but 4,000 is a good point per month, because that accommodates then to the 50K per year, and that's where you can make an investment and where an investment will be worthwhile. Good. That goes now to my prototyping stage. The next stage that we have is actually productizing that. What you have seen here in my last step was productizing and prototyping in one, because we have built so many proof of concept for so many customers doing prompt engineering, retrieval augmented generation. We have sometimes customers where we have really large knowledge bases that we insert here with retrieval augmented generation, with vector stores, for example, also in the audit space, to get in here to retrieve very specific pieces of information. And we just made an application where you can go basically directly from building to launch, and integrate it further into your processes. If you don't do that with our platform, there's two things that you always have to think about is what type of user interface does the end user have to interact? And in many cases, we already have some sort of existing software that helps us do task XYZ. It's just not smart enough. Can we do an integration via an API to that very specific user interface that we already have? That's a valid use case. You don't need to force everything to be in a chatbot. Yeah, it's about processes and process optimization. And if a chatbot doesn't make sense, a chatbot doesn't make sense. Yeah, just because ChatGPT is a chat interface, you don't have to force yourself into it if it doesn't make sense. What you have to do in any case is you have to define the data interfaces. Where do you get your information from? Where do you get your data from? And how do you proceed with that? In the end, there are basically 4 different types of applications that I would say. One is the typical AI process application that you have just seen. One is what we call a knowledge search application, which is more of a Google-like interface where you do some research. The third one is a chat agent. Of course, chat applications make sense for use cases where you need to have that interaction, where you probably don't necessarily know 100% what it is that you're looking for, but where you're looking more of a peer to validate or to build something with. Then in these cases make sense. And the last case is the AI editor application. This is every time where, let's say, the end product that you need to produce is some sort of document. Examples that I'm currently working on are real estate appraisals, letters from lawyers for insurance cases, or things like emails out for project proposals, responding to RFQs, responding to RFPs. These are all, or actually making expert reviews and auditing documents regarding to a specific audit. It's a use case since Alexei has asked that I'm also currently working on different things. But there is all of these things where you, in the end, you don't need a chat, but you need a document. You need to iteratively, with an AI, produce a document that you can iteratively improve and in the end send out. Then an AI editor application is actually what you need. And this is when it comes then to the operate part. So what I always say is build these small proof of concepts so that you can iteratively improve on them and collect feedback as soon as you can. Nothing is worse than you sitting there dreaming about applications that your colleagues might want to use, giving it out, and in the end saying them, I don't know how to use that, or the quality is bad. That's the thing that happens to all of these companies who just blindly buy ChatGPT and then are surprised if it doesn't work or it doesn't give them their intended results. See it as a way of product management. Each of these products, small little processes that you build, is a product. So you need to, when you roll it out, start with the innovators first, right? With the people that are willing to try out new cool stuff, even though it's maybe not completely, hooked yet. Gather feedback and build something that is close to the people that's there. Make updates, validate, update again. And then eventually, in the end, you will have an improvement for your existing processes, hopefully, that you can put into it. And that's basically what I'm doing together with my company, with the platform that you have just been seeing. We built these four types of applications. We give others licenses to build these type of applications with our process interface themselves. And we help basically make these proof of concepts and getting them from beginning into production. With a low-code builder, there's many other things regarding quality engineering, regarding retrieval augmented generation, regarding anything related to that. And that's basically the end of, it was 40 minutes, not 45. Good. We have now about 20 minutes for any type of questions that you could think of. And that I haven't answered so far. I have here a QR code that goes to my Calendly. If you would like to book a meeting with me, where we would like to talk about something a little bit more private, feel free to do so. Emilia is also sending around a feedback form to just learn a little bit more about you folks, also gather your feedback about how you liked it. And really feedback is appreciated because I'm always trying to build or to conceptualize these webinars so that they actually answer questions that people have in the field right now, pains that they want to solve. So anything that you put in here will be in such a form, will be used as input for the next webinars that we are doing, to build just the most interesting parts and get that. In the end to you, and you will get an invite again. So with that, thank you very much. And are there any questions left? Emilia, any question that I didn't see? No, there's Alexei.
Yes.
Alexei has a question. How do you handle error cases like the contact was not found? How do we handle like hallucinations like a made-up person was found and presented as a real contact? Third, how do we know if the behavior deviates over time in production? Okay, super question. Contact was not found by showing, so the first two questions is actually by not hallucinating things together, but by using retrieval augmented generation. I will show you an example where we do that. We have one legal company at the moment, which is international. So they have 400 partners. They are international law firm. They have 400 partners in 7 different countries. So 400 partners on partner level. People are problematic for these for everybody to know everybody. This company gets every week about 30 inquiries for new projects, and they need to map these projects to people that might be able to answer or to be working on these projects. Yeah, that's the challenge. That's the approach that we do. And I will show you now how the process looks like that we build behind that, and that this process doesn't hallucinate. So we are giving here as an input, we are giving here the inquiry. And this is, I have here an old process that I'm just bringing up, where we are taking an inquiry about someone, I think in the crypto field, who is looking to raise a 50 million Series B round. And we are getting that, or we are reducing the possibility of hallucinations with 2 main measures. One is working one step at a time and making explicit requirements to the model. And please don't write there, please don't hallucinate. It will just hallucinate something together. That's not what I mean with explicit requirements, but basically showing the way and the steps of how to get to the answer. And the second way is with retrieval augmented generation. The first thing is actually what you see here. Before I do anything, I tell it, okay, take my inquiry and extract the overall project, the goal, the legal field expertise, and if you need important industry connections for that project somewhere. So with that, I can verify later, if I wanted to be as a human in the loop, I could verify what has been done there in the past. Then that's the second measure, retrieval augmented generation. If you have standard information, and in this case, the standard information that I have is the profiles of the partners of that law firm. So we took all 400 profiles of that company and we structured it in a vector database so that we can use retrieval augmented generation and semantic search to search in this database. And I get the 10 best matching partners for that project. And then in the third step, I connect actually the source of information to the text that I generate. And in this case, so that you just see how the raw data looks like. Once we, that's a little bit small. Let's make it a little bit bigger. The raw data is basically the profile of one person. That's how the raw data looks like. It's basically a profile, a CV, without any formatting in between, because large language models don't need formatting in that case over here, at least. And what we are doing now is we are basically feeding all of this information here, and we are making 3-sentence summaries for each of them. So we specifically, Alexei, we specifically create a workflow with retrieval augmented generation where we have a clear mapping between what the AI has generated and the source where it comes from. But you can only do that if you actually provide the sources, if you provide the documents, if you do retrieval augmented generation, or if you just feed it as an input in there. Other than that, with fine-tuning, you don't have any chance to get decently accurate things. Stuff like Perplexity, where you do web search, is also a way to do that, but Perplexity is basically a web search retrieval augmented generation engine that you do. And that's the only, let's say, that's the best way on how you reduce hallucination and how you can actually verify what is going on. Yes, you can also do fine tuning. Yes, you can do other things for hallucination detection. But in the end, the more close you stay to already verified sources, and the more you create that connection between the sources and the outputs that you create with a large language model, the better you have verifiability and you have confidence in that place. To your third question, how? So I hoped that answered question 1 and question 2. To your third question, how do we know that in production it doesn't deviate over time? Well, we have to have, of course, a testing phase. And what we also have here, we have a test bed functionality where we get live feedback from live users that in the end say, yes, this output was good. No, this output was not good. So you cannot 100% eliminate the possibility for hallucinations. No one ever can that as long as there is a large language model. But you can gain confidence basically by creating 100 different test cases and evaluate them regarding to quality, or by basically doing that in production, tracking your live feedback and evaluating in that way. So it's a matter of confidence, not so much. You can't get 100%, let's say 100% security that there's going to be no hallucination, but you need to come to a point where it's over your own personal threshold in terms of when an hallucination happens, what the impact is. It's risk management in that way, and going on there. Oh, okay, Alexei, I see you like my answers. Great answers. However, the CV example for bags is standard legalese follow-up question. How do we tackle the AI Act with special employee safeguards and GDPR about processing personal information without consent? In any case, super presentation. Thanks again. Oh, thank you very much. Basically, the stuff that we have here are all with employees. These employees of that company have all given their consent. And what we are doing for that very specific company over here, we are not using a public GPT model, but we are using a model that is through our Azure subscription and has enterprise-grade security and privacy. It's a little bit more expensive, but you get basically from Microsoft Azure the same model that you would get from if you go directly to ChatGPT, but you get it first of all over an API. And second of all, you get enterprise grade data security, SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, ISO 20001 compliance, and you get also GDPR safeguards on that case. And we also, as a company, we also got, in terms of we being the platform owner of what we have here, we also got these type of certificates and many more, including data processing agreements and everything that is related to that. With respect to the data usage agreements between the company and its employees, that's something that I would see more in the area of corporate, and these lawyers didn't have any issues with that because they already have existing contracts. I think that's the nice thing when you work with lawyers. Lawyers usually tend to have everything that they could already think of already being regulated. When you work with startups, you have to start a little bit earlier in the process with them. But yeah, they have data processing agreements. We have here a specific data processing agreement that we got with Microsoft Azure and that we got with ChatGPT. So that these are things that we have. If those standards are in the end acceptable for you or not, I can't judge. I can only tell you what these people provide and what we can provide. And then it's a matter of if that matches your requirements or not. But so far, GDPR compliance, ISO 27001 compliance, and SOC 2 compliance never put us in trouble with any of our enterprise customers so far. That's just talking from experience.